What you're looking at here is a 2016 Craftmade American Tradition ceiling fan. This is installed in my little brother's bedroom at the new house, and I actually got this for free from work. It was a defective, in a way, fan that had been put back into the box. And it's been here since before I actually worked there, just sitting in the back for quite a while, and finally needed more space, so to home with me it came. So there's really nothing wrong with this fan except for a slight bearing hiss, even though the bearings themselves are fine. Like, it doesn't have any issues it doesn't stop too quickly or whatever, but you can really not tell it's there, so who cares. So it's in the antique white finish, and I used the light kit off the Max Air since I didn't need a light kit for that fan anymore. And it does have snow white blades. I couldn't find any antique white when we replaced, I guess, the fan. We only did the motor, so the rest of it was out of the box and used on the existing fan, I guess. Whatever. Maybe we needed the blades for something else, I'm not sure. So these are older blades. And we'll go ahead and start it off on low. This fan, like the one in my bedroom, has a 188 by 20 millimeter spinner motor in it. This one, of course, is 5 only, and it's made by Litex, whilst my bedroom fan is made by Fan Thing still, and is a 4.5 blade motor. So I believe the 188 by 20 was actually taken out of the Cameo and just tapped for 4.5 blade configuration, because they did have a fan back in the 90s and early 2000s, before this model ever existed, that used that motor size. So I imagine the design of the motor, at least in the earlier days of this model anyway, was just taken from that fan and tapped for 4 or 5 blades instead of 6. So obviously this is the Litexified housing design that a lot of people are like, it looks like a Harbor Breeze classic. It isn't the same housing, despite popular belief. It's actually a little bit smaller than the Builder's Best and classic style housing, but it is the same general design. But a lot of companies use these vents and switch housing. Like the Camerons look like this, except for the different arms. Mink Air Ultra Maxes, Concord stuff, Regencies, whatever, so it's not uncommon. So still has a 16-degree blade pitch. The blade arms and switch housing are the same from the older model. And yeah, it still performs great. On the lower speeds, you really can't hear the bearing issue, so it's really more on medium that you can kind of hear it. But there's airflow noise that kind of balances it out. And it doesn't bother my brother, so that's all that really matters. It does have a slight wobble, nothing major though. Like I said, the blades are fairly old. I think these might actually be the blades that came with my bedroom fan. I think that's what I used on this. Neat thing about these antique white Craftmades from this era is, instead of polished brass accenting, they have antique brass. So the screws, the pull chain, etc. are all antique brass as opposed to the older polished brass. Of course, the light kit has polished brass screws because it's older, but the fan itself is all antique brass accents, which is neat. I did actually lose the switch housing screws because I had to take this down for something. And I just recently put it back up because it's starting to get hotter, because the Hugger fan that was in here before is an atrocity for a 10-foot ceiling like this. It's ridiculous. We'll also mention that the downrod is not antique white. I don't have any 1-foot downrods in that finish, so I found the closest thing, which is a sandstone white, or their Navajo white Craftmade downrod from the CXL I have in that finish. And you really can't notice it until the lighting is just right and you're really paying attention, so it's a pretty good match. Obviously it's textured versus everything else being smooth. And here's high speed. But otherwise it's fine. No big deal at all. So this thing moves around 60 to 100 or so CFM of air, something in that range I think, from the factory. I haven't played with the capacitors or anything, this is just the normal speed. It's going about 195 to 200 RPMs on high speed. It's fairly fast considering the blade pitch, so it is definitely doing its job well. This was pretty much designed to compete with the new 15-degree blade pitch on Casablanca fans, and it did a great job of it because it performs about the same as all of those 2000s Casablancas with the upgraded blade pitch. So it's definitely a better fit in here than what was previously installed. I actually went ahead and used the same shades from the Max Air as well, which originally were not on the Max Air anyway, they were on the Sandstone White CXL. But I liked the way that they looked and I wanted to use them on a fan that I had installed, so they went on the Max Air at the old house. Yeah, it's a really nice fan. I enjoy having a newer Craftmade put up. I don't have very many of these because I just don't really feel like paying new fan prices right now. It's not that I couldn't really afford it, it's just a personal thing for me. I don't feel most fans, to me, are worth more than, $100. So all the ones I do have are free, so whatever. I'm not the biggest fan of this design as opposed to the previous Vent design, but I don't hate it like a lot of people do. It is whatever to me because it still looks like a Craftmade, because nothing made today has pretzel arms in this housing design, so it's not like it's hard to tell what it is, Still has the same kind of contoured and stepped, or sculpted, I guess, pretzel arms that are a bit beefier looking than the CXL's version. They actually retain those blade arms entirely. No change at all. And it still has the concentric rings on the bottom of the switch housing, so to me it still looks like an American tradition. But I do prefer the volume equalizer vents, like the one on my bedroom fan. But like I said, this was free, and I always enjoy comparing everything, so it's nice to have a newer Craftmade fan to compare. One interesting thing to note is that these, when they were new, which they don't make them anymore, sadly, thanks to lovely tariffs on custom fans, they kind of a little bit noisy from the factory, but I figured out why. It's because now Craftmade uses a metal ball instead of a plastic one. Kind of wish they would have rubber coated the metal ball, it would have solved the issue. But since this has an older downrod from 1996, it's dead silent. So it's not that the fans themselves suddenly got noisy or like the motor quality went down or anything. It's just the downrod ball. If you change the downrod ball, everything else is quiet. I have a 2020 CXL as well, and I also have it on an older downrod because, again, it needs to be a 1-foot. Didn't have any newer 1-foot Craftmade downrods. And instead of swapping the ball, I figured I'd just use what was already on the one I have. Sure enough, it's dead silent just like all my old Craftmades, so it isn't the isn't anything else but the downrod ball that makes them kind of hummy now. I mean, it's not a horrible noise, but it's there. And it doesn't bother most people, but it would bother me just a little bit. On the flip side, my Sentry has a bit of a hum. And that one had a standard downrod ball. It was plastic. So perhaps in the early 2010s they were just a little bit noisier, but then they got better. But then of course they also went to the metal ball, so that kind of canceled every improvement out. So yeah, in this view with the natural light hitting it, you can definitely see the difference in blades. It's not the best. It isn't as dramatic in person, I will say, but it is still noticeable. Granted, most of the time these blades are moving, so you don't really notice it as much. The fan is not as yellow as it appears on the camera. That's the camera trying to figure out a balance between sunlight and 2700 Kelvin LED light bulbs that I'm using to aid in lighting. So that's pretty much it. I hope y'all enjoyed, and thank you for watching. Until next time, no guarantees on when this will come out. I'm not feeling as motivated to upload it the day I film it as I did that last one, but eventually it will come around. So that's pretty much it, and I'll see you next time.